Hello everyone and welcome to this session where we will be understanding what SAP actually is. Now, SAP sounds like an acronym or could also be the normal SAP that we find in trees, right? So, in order to exactly understand what SAP is and how it works, let us look into this particular scenario where we have a particular person working in an organization. And this person is working in a complete silo, meaning that he or she does not know in which stage of development or programming or deployment a particular application is or a particular service is in. Suppose this person is in sales and he or she gets a call from a client stating that they have a particular requirement of one of their services or products. The person says, "All right." And since the person is in a silo, they do not know whether or not that particular product or service is available within their repository. However, the person asks the client to hold on for some time, goes, asks his colleagues, his managers, his subordinates, etc. That means he literally goes around asking for answers from multiple people in his team or her team, and then comes back to the client after an hour or two stating that yes, we do have the requirement with us. But by this time, the client has already bought their service or their product from another competitor. This is because the turnaround time from this company was very slow and another company was pretty much quicker in their turnaround. So, in order to avoid such scenarios where there could be a potential loss of business, we use the SAP. So, in this particular session, we're going to understand exactly what the SAP is, what is the need for SAP, the various types of systems that we have for managing a complete process, namely the centralized and the decentralized systems, as well as which one is better. We will then understand what an ERP is, and we'll look into some of the advantages of using an SAP ERP. So, let's quickly dive in. So let's look into what SAP actually is. So SAP is actually a company that creates a product or various products that can be used for data processing and management. The full form of SAP is System, Application, and Product. And actually speaking, SAP was created for the express purpose of processing the data that has been collected by an organization throughout its working. Now, SAP as a company was created in 1972, and since its main aim was data processing and management, there were a lot of different types of systems that were created by SAP in order to actually solve the ongoing problem in the various industries that were there at the time. Now, let us understand exactly what type of issues would have been there. So suppose we have a group of people. These people could either be developers, they could be managers, they could be the board of directors, or they could even be some technical support assistant, right? In any case, all of these people have various thoughts along the lines of what are the next steps or what are the previous steps that were already taken or undertaken by our other colleagues in order to resolve an issue or maybe as a part of the process. Who is responsible or who was previously responsible for the steps that were or are going to be taken? Do we have enough material, raw material that is, and do we have enough HR in order to actually implement those requirements into our preceding or into our succeeding steps? Do we have the appropriate expertise with respect to our human resource, or are there some places where workshops are required? And many more such questions. All of these can come in the mind of any of these people at any level of operation. So how do we resolve this? This is one of the main ways to do so, is to have a complete centralized system in place that contains all of this information. Not only would this information be contained, it would be constantly updated as well as maintained and managed. And this is exactly the kind of system that SAP wanted to implement. Let us go further and understand the need for SAP. As of now, what we're saying is that SAP is an organization. SAP being an organization, it has various products that actually help us in managing the system. Now here what we're going to do is we're going to understand exactly what SAP helps us manage and how it helps us manage. Suppose we have a system wherein there is a customer, say customer A, who is communicating with a salesperson B. This particular salesperson is being asked for a particular product. This product may or may not be there in our inventory. The product can even be a service. So suppose the salesperson goes and checks the inventory, which is actually a list of complete product or services that are available at any given point of time. The salesperson realizes that this particular service or product is not really available in our repository and tells the customer that since it is not currently available, we will be making it available in the near future, or we would provide you with this product in so and so given time duration. After this, the salesperson would speak to the production planning. Now, what is the job of a production planning environment? In any organization, production or planning or both is a team who actually plans what type of production needs to be done within the organization for having the services and products ready for deployment. And apart from that, it also plans the production process. So all of the planning and all of the production as well as operation is planned by the production planning team. The salesperson is going to intimate the production planning team that so and so product is not available within the inventory. As a result, the production planning team will check the inventory, find whether the raw materials or all of the other kinds of HR and materials required for developing the process is available. If yes, the product would be developed and then sent back to the customer. But what happens if it is not available? Well, in that case, the product planning team will locate and communicate with the vendor. The vendor would then provide all of the raw materials required to the production planning team. The production planning team will then deploy the creation of all of these products on the shop floor. Now, please remember, it's not only software or hardware products that can be created in this way. SAP or the whole process of production that is being explained here is actually common for any kind of industry and any kind of environment. So here the shop floor is the area where the actual production happens. So here, after getting all of the raw material and in some cases the HR also from the vendor, we are then going to deploy all of these resources onto our shop floor where the actual production activities would take place. The product will then be sent after creation to the sales team, and the sales team can then simply give it to the customer as per the requirements of the customer. So the service required by the customer is easily available to them using this process. After all of this process is done, we still have a few more things. Those things are the financial aspects. So the sales team member not only has to communicate with the customer, they would also need to communicate with the finance team to show exactly what impact did our team have on the finance of the company. So what all incoming amount was actually there and what all expenditure was incurred in order to create this particular product. That would also have to be reported by the sales team to the finance team. Similarly, the production planning team will also have to give a complete accounting of what costs were incurred in the whole development of the service or product to the finance team. And lastly, any and all recruitments that were taken care of or any and all workshops that were undertaken as a part of this process would have to be communicated to the HR. So this is how all of the various aspects of our organization are actually interrelated with each other. Now, after understanding this, just think about a scenario where somehow, because of whatever reason, this particular communication did not happen. This means that after the whole process was complete and after the customer has received their service, what if the salesperson forgot to intimate the finance team about the various financial impacts of that particular sale? Or maybe this particular information got lost in transit, or maybe even because of some kind of bureaucratic procedures got lost. right? In any of these cases, it's going to have a huge impact on the general financial capabilities of the organization. Majorly because if there is one instance of such a case, there could be multiple instances. So, as a result, you can see that even after doing all of the processes very efficiently, the team would still not have an accurate intimation about where they stand financially in the market, because there is a constant drop in information between the sales and the finance team. There are some issues here. Now, how do we solve these issues? We solve these issues by having a clear and transparent communication between all the various aspects or all the various teams in the organization by implementing the SAP software. In order to better understand how good SAP is or how advantageous SAP's ERP is, let us look into the two types of ERPs that we have in our market today. So, actually, we have three types of ERPs, but the third type is just a combination of the two basic types. So, first we've got the decentralized systems, and next we've got the centralized systems. Now, as the name suggests, a decentralized system would be something that is disconnected from each other, or maybe there would be no central repository here, whereas a centralized system would have a central repository or some kind of central processing unit. Now, what exactly is a decentralized system? A decentralized system is one which has no real time updates, because information is updated within the repository or within a common repository after a particular lapse of time. Let us look at an example to understand what goes on here. So, suppose you have a decentralized system wherein information is stored within the repository at the end of the day or at the end of the hour. Let us say we have a person, a customer, who has actually requested for a particular service from the salesperson. Now, this particular salesperson checked the repository or the inventory and found that the service is available. The salesperson commits to the customer that they would receive their required service within a stipulated time. However, on actually going and trying to deploy that particular service for the customer, the salesperson finds that this particular information that the service was available in the inventory was false. The service is actually not available in the inventory, and that is because at the time of the call, the information was expired. And after the call, the information was updated. And as soon as the salesperson saw the updated information, they realized that we do not have this particular service within our system. This means that even though the salesperson has promised the customer that they would be providing the service in a stipulated time, it is not possible because the service or the product is not available within the inventory. So, what happens now? This is a big issue with decentralized systems. Because of information that comes to the end user, maybe after the validity of the information has expired, there could be heavy losses to the company. There are various kinds of disadvantages to this type of a decentralized system. First, we've got loss of business, obviously, because the customer would be completely dissatisfied. How is it that after promising that the service would be provided, the salesperson says that, oh, we're sorry, the service would no longer be provided? Most people would rant on the internet and give a bad review to this kind of a service, obviously, which would lead to loss of further or future business also. Potential clients could then say that we are better off not connecting with this particular organization for whatever service we might require. So there is an increase in the loss of business and an increase in the customer dissatisfaction. Not only that, having this kind of a data would require us to have a local storage. Now, what is the meaning of this local storage? Local storage implies that every person would have their own repository where they would store data, and then at the end of the hour, all of this information would be stored in a central repository. So, this means that not only do we have a central repository, we also have various other smaller buckets that we have to create for each and every person who is a part of our organization. And all of their information would at one go be updated into the central bucket at the end of the hour or at the end of the day also, depending upon the type of information they are working with. Doesn't that increase the cost of maintenance? Because not only do you have to maintain one bucket here, which is already large, you also have to maintain n number of smaller buckets. And as per the size of the organization, the number of these smaller buckets could even be in the millions. Lastly, there's an increased labor cost because not only do you need people to manage the day-to-day processes, you now also need people to manage this whole storage system, because it's not easy to set up, maintain, or manage such a huge network of storage devices only by a couple of people. You would actually need a dedicated team for this, which therefore increases the labor cost. So this means that a decentralized system on its whole is pretty much disadvantageous from a technical as well as a financial point of view. Now let's look at what a centralized system would do. A centralized system, as per the name itself, has a central repository where all of its information is stored. Now, what happens in a central repository or a centralized system? So, suppose there is a customer who has some requirement. He or she would obviously be speaking to a salesperson. Now, what would the salesperson do? This salesperson is directly connected to the ERP. And this means that the salesperson has complete information in real time about whatever is going on in the other departments also. Now, based upon their access level, based upon their authentication levels, there would be some information that would be hidden from them, but a lot of the information that is required would obviously be available to the salesperson at any given point of time. So this means that if there is an update 0.0005 seconds ago in the inventory that there was a particular software that is no longer available within the repository, the salesperson would get that intimation immediately. This means that during the conversation, the salesperson could update the customer about the availability or even the non-availability of a service or a software. This means that the customer is completely aware about what the current status of the required service is. As a result, the salesperson can also ensure or can console the customer that they would be delivering a particular product which would not be available within the stipulated time. And why would the stipulated time be decided? Because not only are they in communication with the inventory system, they also have access to the finance, the HR, and the shop. The shop being very important here because this is where all of the planned products would be created. So the salesperson would have direct information about what is the current status in the shop and how many days it would require to create a given product or service on the shop floor. Not only that, they would also have information about the various planned products that are there because of the production and the planning team information, and thus the salesperson can make an educated guess about when a particular product would be available for service by the customer. So here the salesperson is at a better state of mind and has a more well-rounded information about exactly what is going on and how long it would take to actually deliver the product that the customer wants. This means that not only have we satisfied the customer, we can also ensure that the customer gets the actual idea about when they would be receiving a given product. This automatically increases the customer satisfaction, and this prevents loss of business from happening. Since the customer is satisfied and happy, they would be repeat customers, and not only that, they could even recommend us to other colleagues of theirs for same or similar kind of services. So this means that on an overall basis, just having an ERP system which updates itself in real time and provides accurate information is essential in order to ensure a healthy business and process. Now, which of these systems is the SAP ERP? Obviously, the SAP ERP is a centralized system. This centralized system has a central repository that contains any and all information of the various types of teams that are a part of the organization. And based upon the capabilities or the access level of the person, the information is provided to them as and when required in a real-time manner. Please note that since there is only one central repository here, there is no need for smaller repositories per person within their own systems. As a result, the cost of the whole data management reduces, and also the labor costs and effort reduces here. So this is what a centralized system is, and this is how an SAP ERP is architectured. So for the past video, we have been vaguely alluding to a software that SAP has created. So what exactly is this software? So this particular software is actually a management software most commonly known as an ERP. Now what does ERP stand for? It's pretty simple. It stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. And in and of itself, this name is very misleading. Now why is this name misleading? That's very simple. All it says here is that we are planning the resources of the whole enterprise. End of story. It seems like a very simple task. Just make sure that your raw materials are in place and the inventories are perfect, and that's it. Well, that's not it. And that is because resources are not only the services or the products that you provide. Resources also refer to the human capital, they refer to the monetary capital, and they also refer to the day-to-day activities that are a part of an organization's working. All of these processes, products, and operations constitute resources. So as a result, this seemingly simple name called Enterprise Resource Management or Enterprise Resource Planning Management actually is deceptively simple. So what do we actually have here? We have got one particular software which takes care of n number of processes. Namely, it looks after the finance of the company. This particular aspect means that all incoming as well as outgoing finances are looked after. It doesn't matter whether the monetary assets are leaving the company due to salaries or leaving the company as investments for the company itself. In any case, any and all incoming as well as outgoing finances are looked after, and records of all of these finances are meticulously maintained. Next, we've got planning and production. So as we know, planning and production are important aspects of any kind of organization. All types of plannings, from processes to products to iterations of any kind of tasks. All of them are actually planned completely by this particular team. Now, what does it mean by planning of processes, products, and iterations? It actually means that any and all kinds of processes, be it the operational processes, be it the financial processes, or even the day-to-day working of the organization, all needs to be planned in a very particular manner so as not to interfere with other processes that might be ongoing. Not only this, even the deployment of a particular product or service has to be planned accordingly. In a similar manner, the various iterations of a product or even the introduction of a new or a revamped product has to be planned in advance, and an iteration has to be created so that it can be deployed without glitches, hitches, or any other problems that could be a part of the deployment process. Next, we've got the sales and distribution team. Now, what does the sales and distribution team do? It's very simple. The sales and distribution team would actually take up the product and the processes as well as the services that have been planned and deployed by the planning and production team and distribute these amongst the customers who request for these services, or even market them amongst these people to generate interest within our target customers. Next, we've got the acquisition and management of material. Again, raw materials of any kind are important for any process. If it is an IT company, the raw materials required would be a computer, a certain set of hardware, a certain set of software having some particular specifications. All of these would be raw materials. If it were a cotton manufacturing company, then the cotton would be the raw material. If it were a marketing company, then HR would be a major resource, or our human resource would be a major resource of the company. So it doesn't matter what kind of acquisition you require for materials. If there are materials required other than human resources, then we would require a material acquisition and management team. Next, we've got human resources. No company is complete without its HR, and that is because humans make up any company or organization that is currently working today. As a result, HR form a very important part of any organization. And lastly, we've got the control and monitoring systems. Control and monitoring systems are especially important when we think about whether or not our processes, products, and iterations are working optimally. So if the process is not optimal, we would not be able to deploy our product. And if the product is not optimal, we would not really get any future customers. And if there were no future customers, how would we implement the iterations that we have planned there? So literally everything depends on the fact that all of the processes, products, and iterations that we have put into place or that we have planned are actually feasible. And who looks after that? That is the control and monitoring team. Not only do they monitor whether a product is doing well or not, they also set down guidelines and checklists and conduct constant audits in order to exactly monitor what is going on and control any of the anomalies that might pop up in all of these processes, products, or iterations. So on the whole, as you can see, there is this complete set of teams that form an organization. And the most important part about all of this is that none of these teams can work individually. Think about it. Can we have a human resource team which can work without the finance team? Of course not, because human resource would actually have to be paid a monthly salary. Who takes care of that? The finance team or the payroll team, obviously. Would the finance or the payroll team be able to function without incoming monetary asset? No. And who brings in the assets? The sales and distribution team, because they market and they sell and they actually create a hue and cry in the market about the product so that the clients get attracted to it. But would the sales and distribution team be able to work without the planning and production team? If there is no product, if there is no service, what do you market? So literally each and every team here work in collaboration with each other. But the ERP ensures that all of these teams collaborating with each other is actually possible without any glitches, so that each and every team is going to insert their information into the ERP such that at any given point of time, irrespective of which team a person belongs to, that particular person can access the information that is relevant to them at any given point of time. And this is what an ERP is. SAP as a company is most famous for creating its ERP software. So much so that today we no longer call the software as SAP ERP. We, however, call the software as SAP itself. This means that SAP as a company has made such a strong ERP system that SAP has now become synonymous with the management software itself. Lastly, let's look into some of the advantages of using the SAP ERP. So we already know that there are various advantages like preserving our customer satisfaction, increasing customer satisfaction, preventing loss of business, and etc. So let us look into them in a more precisely collated manner. So first, we've got the elimination of redundancy and duplication in data. If you have various smaller elements or various smaller data sources that are a part of your data storage system or even your data management system, you would find that each and every element here would have some kind of a duplication within the central repository. So this central repository actually has to be updated by these smaller ones. This means that you would have a complete replication of the smaller repositories into the larger repositories. Now, what is an issue here? If the smaller repositories are not emptied regularly, there is a chance that we could have 2 or more copies of the exact same data stored within the central repository. And these copies would not clash with each other. However, they would unnecessarily occupy excess space. Now, what happens if we have only a central repository with no smaller local repositories? This means that all data is put directly into the central repository. There is no intermediate storage space which will later update the central repository. As a result, any and all information that is coming into the central repository is first time information. This means that there is a sharp drop in the redundancy of data, as well as duplication of data would be very difficult. Next, we have a complete access to constantly updating and real-time information. At any given point of time, if person A makes any change within the repository, or even for that matter, if 2 people are making simultaneous changes to the same element within the repository, all of those updates will be appropriately taken up and updated for the whole ERP system that is in place. This is a concept that is a part of database management system, which actually helps us do this. In any case, irrespective of who makes the changes or when those changes were made, the changes are reflected as and when they are made to all of the people who have access to that particular system. Next, it increases productivity and throughput because there is no need for a constant follow-up with other parts of the team or other teams on the whole. This is due to the fact that any and all changes that have been made to the process or within the process, or any status updates that have happened within the various parts of the project, would be updated in real time in the system. So that means there is less need for follow-ups, there is less need for constant meetings and constant catch-ups. Therefore, we would have an increased productivity and leading to increased throughput. Next, we've got efficient process management. Now, a process is created in order to efficiently manage the day-to-day activities. So, what is process management? Process management is actually the way in which the process is planned, implemented, carried out, monitored, and then revamped on the basis of any lacunae that would be found in the process. So this means that when we have an ERP, we have a complete idea about what the process is, and not only that, we also have a constant eye because we are constantly monitoring as well as controlling the ongoing processes. This means that we have a better chance of managing the processes and a better chance of identifying any issues with the processes and rectifying them in a real time and timely manner, thereby leading to efficient process management. Lastly, having a constant interaction with the whole system and the various parts of the process of the system gives us a better idea about exactly where we are in the service deployment or product deployment phase. As a result, as a salesperson or even as someone in finance, we have a better understanding of the process and we can better communicate with any and all stakeholders who are part of the process. Those stakeholders could be customers, or for that matter, they can even be investors in our system. In any case, what we would have is an improved interaction with the customers as well as stakeholders, and a constant and improving service could be provided to them as and when required by the clients. So these are some of the most glaring advantages that are there for using SAP ERP. So this brings us to the end of the session on an introduction to SAP. Now let's quickly have a recap of all of the various concepts that we have gone through here. So first off, SAP is actually an organization that creates an efficient ERP system which helps us in the management of various day-to-day tasks that are undertaken in an organization. ERP, which actually stands for Enterprise Resource Planning, is a type of management system software. It takes care of all of the various aspects and teams and processes that are a part of an organization's daily activities. And not only that, it also creates a complete communication network between all of these various teams, such that each and every team is updated about what has happened previously in the process, what would be happening in the future, and what is currently ongoing within the organization at any given point of time. And all of this information is updated in a real time manner. Now, ERPs can be decentralized and centralized, but the SAP ERP is a centralized system which actually aids us in this real time update of any and all kinds of changes which are a part of the organization's processes. Implementing an SAP ERP not only gives us advantage in terms of increased productivity, increased throughput, and increased management efficiency, but all of these increases in the overall throughput directly impacts the customer service and the customer experience that we provide to our end users and customers. So it directly leads to an increased customer satisfaction, therefore giving us more business in the future. So I hope you've liked this entire session about what SAP actually is and how the SAP's ERP service provides us with a wonderful management system. Hope you liked this session. Thank you so much.